Welcome back. The Palace of the Governors in Santa Fe has been under renovations, and museum staff came up with a unique idea to give visitors a behind-the-scenes look at the process and the history behind the building.
Welcome to the Palace of the Governors. The tours that we're going to be doing this fall are going to focus on 4 different themes. One is we want people to come away with an understanding of how the building developed and changed over a 400-year period. Another thing that's important is that this is a National Historic Landmark. That means that there are certain kinds of guidelines we should be using in terms of how we protect this building, and we'll want to talk about that. We understand what we do about the palace because of 4 different sources, and that understanding those sources is going to be a part of the 3rd theme that we'll have in the tours, and that involves archaeology, looking at historic documents, doing what you might call architectural forensics, where we actually look at the material itself to understand how it came to be, when it was installed and such. And then the 4th major theme is that the current use of this building is as a museum, and it's been a museum at least since 1909, and we want people to understand what that has meant, because the way that museums interact with the public, how they tell stories, how they show objects, has changed in the more than a century since this building opened as a museum. Well, we're getting to the point in the rehabilitation process for the Palace of the Governors where we feel that it's possible to open it up when there are breaks in construction to allow the public to get into the building. This is going to be the palace without any exhibits in it. And we've got between now, which is the beginning of August, and the end of the year, so December, where we'll be doing work, but we will allow people to come through on guided tours to experience the building just as a building, as a historic building. And we think that's really important for people to be able to do. This is an exhibit case that dates from the 1913 remodeling of the palace as a museum. That was state of the art at the time. There were shelves that were put in here that were used to exhibit Pueblo pottery. So one of the questions and the challenges that we have is how to reuse these spaces so that we maintain the architectural feature of the room and at the same time are able to have the room work in a 21st century sense as a good gallery space. There won't be any cost other than admission. So once you get into the museum, as long as there is space on the tour for that particular day, then people will be able to go. In this room, we can also notice something that's unique to this particular gallery space, and that is that we have an original ceiling from the 1909 to 1913 remodel. The beams that have been chamfered, cut along the edges, and then have been carved into patterns, have created these coffers, these spaces between the beams that are exposed. And in the corners of each of the 4 corners of the room, the people who were remodeling the building put in a Pueblo pot as a decorative element within the space. Looking around and looking very closely, there's a little figure that's been scratched into the plaster, and I don't know anything about that particular thing at this point, but that's the delight of walking through a building and looking closely at it. It will be by reservation. It'll be coordinated through our front desk. And what I'm anticipating is that we will know about 2 weeks in advance what the construction schedule is. So once we have the construction schedule, we'll be able to basically post it, let people know. We'll be using whatever media we can to help people understand that. It could also include a sign outside the front door on Lincoln that says, sign up for tours of the palace.
The museum will periodically update the tour dates and times, so for more information, just head to NewMexicoLivingLocal.com.